Hey y'all, it's Rose's Randoms. Welcome back to another video, and this time I am going to be reviewing a book called The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. But before we get into that, please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and yeah, let's get into the video. So this is not going to be a spoiler-free video. However, the spoilers are going to be more towards the end, and I'll tell you when we get there so you can click right off if you don't want to hear spoilers. But yeah, so this book is about four women who were friends from childhood. They went to the same school, who reunite after several years because an incident that happened in their childhood has brought them back together, and together they have to navigate the lie that they told to get themselves out of this compromising position. So this book is pretty much sectioned off according to the title of the book, The Lying Game. So The Lying Game has 4 steps, and so this book has 4 sections. It does not have chapters. However, you can tell by like the formatting of the book where the chapters would be, or like, you know, where a chapter would possibly end, right? And so they're just not numbered, but you can tell where the chapters are. So like there are like sections within the section. And so like, you know, you have the first step of the lying game, or first rule of the lying game, and then you have several chapters. The second rule of the lying game, several chapters, and so on and so on. I don't really know why the author made this decision. I don't think it would have made a difference if we just put numbers on the chapters, but that's fine, whatever. Also, this book goes back and forth between the past and the present, and it was fairly easy to follow. There are some books that go back and forth between past and present where you're like, wait, where are we? You know what I mean? But like in this one, I think it was fairly easy to follow. So that's always good. And speaking of easy to follow, I did see reviews online where like I read the reviews after I read the book, just to see like gauge what people's thoughts were on this book. But the reviews I read it was mixed in terms of, there are quite a few people who said that it was an easy read and they enjoyed the book, but then there were quite a few people who were like also like, yeah, I didn't know what was going on in this story until about page 200 or 200 and something. Not lying, go look for yourself. And or they were saying that like it was hard to follow the story, the writing wasn't great. And so, you know, like I'm quick to say if writing is not great or a book is hard to follow, because I'm not afraid to like DNF a book or like not finish a book. But for this one, for me personally, I did find it very easy to follow. I finished it quicker than some books. I enjoyed reading the book itself. And I honestly don't think that the mixed reviews say, I guess, too much about the author's writing style, and I only say that because it's mixed reviews, and maybe it has more so to do with people's different tastes, or, you know, things like that, or what they like in writing and things of that nature. Now, if it had mostly negative reviews, then maybe I would say differently, even if I enjoyed the book. But since it's mixed, I just think that like people maybe have different tastes, and maybe her writing style isn't necessarily for them. However, this is my first time reading this author, so, you know, take my opinion on that with a grain of salt. Regardless of the story, yes, like I said, I found it fairly enjoyable to read, actually. But let's talk about the story. I was sort of disappointed with how the story ended and with the story itself. I didn't necessarily think it was a bad story, but I thought that it had so much unreached potential, you know? And I think my biggest disappointment was in the title, The Lying Game, because I don't feel like that was touched upon quite enough. You know, like I feel like they explained it throughout like the story. Like I said, there were sections that were dedicated to the 4 rules of this lying game. But at the same time, I feel like I didn't get enough out of it. Like I found myself wanting more after every section, to the point where it was like almost like I forgot what the rules were because they almost didn't matter, even though it was clear that like this author was like writing the story according to what was going on in the present, and saying like, okay, that matches up to this rule of the lying game. But I didn't really feel that, and I kind of forgot that it was even sectioned off. Like I knew that, but while reading that, it kind of didn't matter. I found it unfortunate that that was the case, because as for many books, like that title is what drew me to it. I love lying books. Like I love books that have a lie. But yeah, this title is what drew me to it. And then also like the blurb is what drew me to it. And it just didn't live up to its potential. Also, the ending was very lackluster. We'll get to that in a few. Yeah, there was just so much potential that was just not reached. The book did have quite a few twists, or like a good amount of twists. Nothing too crazy, but at the same time it was still predictable. Like the twists were predictable, and like I know that as you continue reading a book, like you start to kind of put the pieces together and whatnot. But it was just more so, it's like, okay, they introduce this character, I know where this is going. They introduce this character, oh, I know where this is going. That sort of thing. And yeah, you can just tell like, okay, this is where the story is gonna go. And then even when you think that there's going to be another twist because they do something, she takes the twist back and she does a whole different thing with it, that it's like, just like, man, we could have went there, but we didn't go there, and it's so sad. And I honestly think that the reason for everything being so lackluster in this book is because like of the story that the author chose to go with for this lying game. Like it's the story, right? It's like we learn the lying game, and then like this is the story you choose to go with, and it just wasn't an intriguing story. You kind of don't really care for the characters / character. I didn't feel much of a connection to the character that this lying game surrounds, that this mystery surrounds. Okay, so now down to the characters, what I liked / disliked, even though I kind of already mentioned stuff that I liked and disliked. There were a few subplots that really did not matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's one of those things where I could understand where a movie does like certain subplots, and even that, like, it's like you gotta keep it to a minimum. But I could understand where movies do certain subplots and then bring it together. But in a book, I just feel like too many subplots that are very unnecessary, or side stories or that are very unnecessary. It just like, it distracts from the actual story and takes away. It's like, okay, where you could actually be adding to this mystery, it's like you're taking away with this thing that does not really matter. There were things that I thought that would end up being significant because it's a book, and then like at the end it just ended up not being significant, or like even if like it was mentioned at the end, it could have been left out of the story, and it wouldn't have made any difference whatsoever. Additionally, I thought that most, if not all, of the characters were very insufferable, especially the main character, more so towards the middle and the end of the book. Like, this person got on my last nerves, my absolute last nerves, from the middle to the end. of the book. Like, I just could not stand her. Like, I was getting so mad at her at one point. I'm like, yo, just do away with her. Do away with her now. We don't need her anymore. Just go. And I just kind of found myself not rooting for like any of them. And I don't think that's ever a good thing. Like, I mean, like, I understand if it's the type of book where it's like you're not supposed to be rooting for anybody, right? There's stories like that. But I feel like in this story, you kind of were meant to be rooting for somebody. But I couldn't find a person, not one character to root for. They were all insufferable. They were all annoying. Also, I thought there would be so much more to the line game, but there just wasn't. It's like I said, it's mentioned kind of in the background. It's mentioned by the characters a little bit, but like not really. It's like, I don't know, they maybe mention to each other maybe once or twice, but like, do they ever for real talk about it? Like, no, they don't. Like, the main character mentions it constantly to the reader, but it's like, okay, like, it seems like nobody else cares about this anymore. They just care about what's going on right now, and that happens to be something that like caused you to do something really bad. Like, and also like, the Lion Game wasn't ever like really harsh at all. Like, sure, it may have hurt some people's feelings, but it wasn't extremely harmful when you look at the bigger picture, like at all, until they do this one incident. Like, you would think that, okay, their line was going to be gradually building up to something big. And it was just like, oh, yeah, we lied, and then this happened, and this was really terrible, and yeah. And now it's gotten us in trouble years later. And so here we go with the spoilers, because I have to talk about this, okay? I have to talk about this. So if you don't want spoilers, click off right now. Click off. Goodbye. The main character, insufferable. So she has a baby with her boyfriend / husband. She says constantly that they're not married, but then at one point she kind of says that they are. But let's go with the fact they're not married. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter. But they have a baby together, and the baby's name is Freya, and she takes this baby everywhere. She's scared to leave this baby alone. Obviously, she's a new mother. She almost doesn't trust her boyfriend to stay with the baby, because it's like, oh, like, I gotta take this baby everywhere. So when one of her friends calls her or texts her and says, like, I need you to come, right? It's all this mystery. It's like, oh my God, like, I know what this is about. And even though this could be a situation that could be like slightly dangerous, or like, you know, not the best circumstances to bring her child, she's like, oh, I'm going to bring my child because she needs to like be fed like breast milk and all of this. So I'm going to bring my child. So she brings her child. And like throughout this entire book, like this whole thing about her like being overprotective of Freya and worrying about Freya, like it's a constant thing. It's mentioned like all the time. And like by the end of the book, it's just like, oh, like I'm going to continue lying to her because she can't know about any of this. And that's like, that was the significance of her baby being in this story. To mention at the end, it's like, oh, I care about her so much that I can't put this burden on her for her to know the truth of what happened. So I'm just going to continue lying to her. And it was like, that's what you did this for? That's what you kept her in this story for? Like, we did not need this. Also, what mother brings her child to a potentially dangerous situation twice? She does it twice in the book. We won't go into it, but she does it twice. The second time, she knows the situation is dangerous, and she still does it. She still does it. She's also insufferable because, okay, she's lying to her boyfriend, and then at some point, like, her boyfriend suspects her of lying, but like he thinks she's cheating on him, but she's not. But like, can you fault him? She's not telling him the truth, and he knows that she's not telling him the truth, and she's constantly like, oh, I don't want to talk about this, like, leave me alone. Like, she gets upset with him, and then she gets mad at him. She gets mad at him because she's lying to him. And it's like, at no point does she see herself. Like, it's one thing for her to be like saying to him that she's upset. But even in her mind, she's like, oh, like, yeah, like, no, I'm still mad at him. Like, he's wrong, yada, yada, yada. I don't want to talk to him. So at some certain point, she's like, oh, like, I don't even know if I love him. I don't love him. Like, I only have space for my friends and for Freya. Like, but she's mad at him. Make it make sense. She's mad at him. And then, like, right in front of his face, like, she does something again to get him mad at her again. Like, she does the same thing all over again, but it's his fault. And then not only that, she goes on to do the one thing that he suspected her of doing, which is like cheat. And she doesn't even really feel bad about it at all. She doesn't feel bad about it. Like, God, I can't stand her. So now let's get into the actual plot of the story, which, you know, centers around, so the character who texted the main character, her name is Issa. Like, she's the one who said, oh, I need you. They all go to Kate's house. This takes place in the UK, by the way. So they all go to Kate's house and they're like, oh, what do you need to tell us? Eventually, Kate's like, oh, like, they found my dad's body. It's her dad's body, right? And you find out throughout the story that they actually helped Kate bury her dad because he committed suicide and she did not want to be kicked out of her house and go into foster care. And she also has a stepbrother who was also living with them, and she was like, oh, I think he was like a year younger than her, and she was worried about him, like, oh, like, they're definitely gonna kick him out, and so, like, he's from France, and so, like, they're gonna send him back. The thing is, though, like, they eventually, like, he did just go back to France with his mother, who, like, the whole reason, like, he was staying with them anyways is because, like, his mother was unstable and couldn't take care of him properly because I think she was a drug addict or something. Anyways, we find out that, or we think we find out that, oh, it was Kate who killed her father. And the way the book goes, like, they do something in the story where, like, they have Kate, like, eerily watching as Issa and her stepbrother are, like, making out, you know what I mean? And, like, she's watching them do this, and then Issa catches her, and it's like, they make it seem, the author makes it seem so eerie, and it makes it seem like, oh, like, Kate is crazy, right? As a matter of fact, a little bit before this, like, they're making it seem like, yo, Kate's crazy, Kate's suspicious, right? And I would have been fine with that because the whole story, you know, she's hiding something. I suspected that she did it, but, like, I wanted it to be more like, oh, like, no, she's insane. But instead they make it like, oh, the brother did it. The stepbrother killed her father because he wanted to, like, they wanted to be together, and the stepfather was upset about that. Like, he was about to send Kate away, and so the stepbrother does this to the father so that they could stay together, and they end up not staying together anyways. And at the end, like there's a fire in the house, and they both like, he's in the house, and Issa's baby Freya is in the house, and, like, so he stays in the house to find Freya and, like, drop the baby down to Issa, and he, like, backs into the fire, and Kate runs back in there to get him. And yeah, they both pass away in the fire. And it was like, yeah, no one No one goes to jail for any of this. And not only that, it was just so lackluster. Like the ending was so lackluster. I wanted somebody to get into trouble. Somebody should have gotten into trouble. It should have ended differently. Kate should have done it. Something had to give. But anyways, that is my review of this book. Okay. I'm complaining a lot, but I enjoyed reading it. I did enjoy reading it. And the story, however, I think the story in itself, because I just wanted to know, is why I enjoyed reading it. And it was fairly easy to read. If it was difficult to read for me, I don't think I could have done it. But it was easy to read for me, thus I enjoyed it. And the story was not bad. But yeah, guys, so read at your own risk. I'm not going to say I don't recommend this book, but I'm not going to recommend it, you know? Anyway, subscribe, comment down below if you've read this book and what you think about it. And also comment some suggestions for like thrillers and romances and stuff, because I need book suggestions. So yeah, thanks you guys so much for watching. Bye.